Hello, and thank you for having me in for this interview. A little bit about myself. My name is Kevin Bell. I have been a Spanish teacher in Oxford High School for the past 5 years. Um, I've taught every level including the AP Spanish Language and Culture course. I've taught summer school there for the past few years. Um, I have experience in curriculum writing. I have written the scope and sequence for all five levels. I have gone through and done a day to day scope and sequence as well, specifically for Spanishes 2 and 3. A couple accomplishments I've had: I've increased the AP Spanish enrollment by 80%. I've also dramatically improved the enrollment for the higher level courses, such as Spanish 3 and 4, both of those being honors courses. I am the SELA Biliteracy Coordinator for the district. I was the first one to implement that in Oxford High School. I've done everything from that program, from implementation to reporting scores to DESI to collaborating with members around the school to make that happen. That's a great program. It gives our students some, especially our multilingual students, some recognition and equitable opportunities. And it's a great opportunity. Many college course or universities accept course credit for passing the seal by literacy. I'm very proud to say that I've put that in. Other things I've done with the school: I've been the varsity baseball coach for the past 2 years. I coached JV the 2 years before that. I've also coached middle school basketball for the district. What I think will make me a strong administrator is that I have experience in instruction, leadership, and then excellent relationship building as well. I'm also bilingual in Spanish, which I think will help us communicate with all stakeholders as well, and have built excellent family and community relationships in my 5 years as Oxford. And I think I'm ready to make the jump to the next level, so thank you for this opportunity. First question, or I guess the second question. As a school leader, what is the vision that you have for your school? My school vision is a school culture of open communication. Communication, communication, communication. Much friction that appears in a school setting between teachers and administration oftentimes is a lack of communication. I'll be very clear with my staff about why we're doing certain things, what we're doing with them, and a frequent line of communication every day. I also want a culture of belonging for students and staff. My action research project for my master's that I completed at Worcester State was actually about classroom engagement, and I found that the number one factor was a sense of belonging. Students who felt like they had a sense of belonging in the school had higher student learning outcomes and felt more engaged in their classwork. I think that's a very important thing, to bring that culture of belonging for students as well as staff too. I want our staff to not be afraid to take risks, to try new lessons, and to learn from things. If a lesson goes horribly, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can learn from that and make the mistakes in the future. That's the kind of message that I want to send, and that's the kind of culture that I want to have for my school. I want to have a strong family partnership and communication. Again, communication is not just between staff and administration. That is with students, with families. We use a tool at Oxford called Parent Square, and that has been excellent for family communication. I plan on reaching out through there frequently, or whatever platform that this district has. And I also think we should have high expectations for students. Students will reach whatever level bar we set. If a teacher or a school system has a low bar, students will always go down and reach that low bar. I believe the inverse is true. If we have high expectations for our students will rise to that level and meet those high expectations, and we can dramatically improve student learning outcomes through those high expectations. Number 3, what are your key look-fors in a classroom? Explain why these look-fors are important to you. The thing that I really want to see in a classroom, if I was going through on an observation, I would want to see student-centered learning. I would want to make sure that students are the ones taking control of the learning. Students are doing that thinking. When students are doing the thinking, participating in the learning, facilitating the conversation, that is where the most learning happens. I want to see students really at the center of these lessons, and the teachers more so facilitating these instead of just a direct instruction and lecture. I understand that direct instruction is necessary, and sometimes it has to happen. I would like to see both as well. I would also like to see that students have access to learning, which means that all students, regardless of ability or special education ability or IEP plans, 504s, all of that, students need to have an opportunity to participate. If a student, especially at the high school level here, does not take that opportunity, that's fine. That's the decision on the student, but it's us as a school to make sure that students are given the opportunity to learn. That partially goes back to my answer about high expectations as well. It is the expectation of the student as well to participate in their classes fully. I'd also like to see that in classrooms as I'm looking through. I'd also like to see students given a chance for multiple forms of engagement, multiple forms to demonstrate that they understand the material. I'd like to see teachers in multiple forms present new material, new instruction to students as well. So to recap my answer, I'd like to see student-centered learning, students at the center of the learning where it's happening, and we'd like to see multiple forms of engagement because that opens up access to all students being able to learn and have high-quality outcomes. Scenario number 4. A parent calls you with a complaint about their child's teacher. They demand that the child be removed from the teacher's class and switched into a new class. What steps do you take to handle the situation? Regardless of anything, we have to listen to the parent. We have them on the phone as listed in this example. We're going to listen to the parent. We're going to record the conversation. Definitely make sure the parent feels heard. Do not promise anything before getting all the facts. Before you end this phone call, or before I end this phone call, I think it's extra important to repeat back to the teacher what exactly their complaints are and what exactly they want done about it. I'm not necessarily going to give in to what the parent asks, but instead I would investigate further. I would assure them that I'm going to go get all the facts beforehand, before making a decision. I would then talk to the teacher about the situation. Now, depending on what the complaint was, will direct how this conversation goes with the teacher. If the parent wants the student out of the class because they're not following their 504 plan, that's one conversation. If the student or the parent wants the student out of the class because they're not making friends in the class, that's another conversation. That will ultimately affect my decision, but I would bring this up with the teacher and I would be honest with them about them. I would make sure to do this in a non-confrontational manner. I'm not trying to get the teacher in trouble. I would come from the framework of we have a problem and we are going to solve it. And then I would be the person directing the solving of this problem. And I would help and facilitate in contact with the parent. I would get as much information as I can from the teacher. Doing so in a non-accusatory way. I think that's extra important too. Teaching is also very hard. It's a very hard job. And it's very emotional, and it drains teachers. There's only 180 school days. Those are a long 180 school days if you can ask any teacher. The emotional demand on the teachers are high. So to approach this in a non-confrontational, collaborative way, I think is extra important. I would definitely have that in mind when approaching the teacher. Then I would make a decision about this, again, depending on what the situation was, what the teacher says, what their teacher input is, what the situation is it a special education violation? Is it a social emotional problem? Something like bullying or something? That would ultimately make my final decision. I would then inform the parent, inform the teacher of everybody of my decision and why I'm making that decision. Regardless of what decision I make or what we go with that, I'm going to follow up with the parent, with the student, and with the teacher afterwards to make sure that hopefully this problem doesn't arise again. We want our parents and our students, particularly our students, to be happy in school and happy with our outcomes. So that's what I would do in that situation. Again, to recap, you would listen to the parent, find all the information, talk to the teacher in a non-confrontational way, decide, and then inform everyone after the fact. And again, I would be very clear and honest about why I'm making one decision or another. Describe your leadership style. That kind of goes with the answer that I just gave. I'm going to be super clear about my communication. I'm going to approach problems from a non accusatory point of view. I'm going to approach these problems of the we have a problem, let me help you solve it, or we are going to solve this thing together, or I'm going to solve it, I need your help to solve it, however you want to frame it. And I would probably frame that differently depending on who I'm talking to as well. Um, I would be supportive. Instruction wise, supportive. I want to encourage risk taking. I want teachers to do the crazy lesson plan. I want them to do the ones where they're flipping the desks upside down. They have the kids running around the classroom. Sometimes those lessons go horribly. That is perfectly okay for that lesson to go horribly. Teachers would learn something from it. They either never do it again or they know how to make one adjustment and make that better. That kind of risk taking helps drive teachers, and that helps teachers grow. And that's one of the benefits I've had actually at Oxford High School the past few years. I really have felt free to go ahead and try these lessons. And I've learned a lot in making decisions from that. My freedom to take risks on lesson plans without fear of getting in trouble or getting bad marks on an evaluation, I think has really helped me grow as a teacher. I would like to bring that to your school here. And I'm also going to communicate everything with my rationale for why I'm doing this. I'll accept teacher input. I do want teacher input. I want to make teachers feel like they're included in my decision making as well. So I want a collaborative leadership style, crystal clear communication, and I'm going to be very supportive. Number 6, what is your discipline philosophy, and how do you support teachers in the classroom? Okay, so students need to be held accountable for their actions. They will be held accountable for their actions in the real world. Just because they're in school shouldn't be a reason to get out of consequences. The main thing is being consistent and holding students accountable. Consistency will drive the student behaviors. If for cell phones, for example, if you're only taking a cell phone 50% of the time when you see a cell phone, you will never solve the cell phone issue. If a student knows that 100% of the time, if they get caught with a cell phone, that cell phone's getting taken, that thing will deter the student behavior as well. Being consistent, holding students accountable for their actions as well. Students will know that behavior X receives punishment X. Students also talk to each other too. So when student X gets in trouble, student Y knows that they could get in trouble for the same sort of action and could expect the same consequence. That consistency can deter student behaviors. Additionally, and I think this is the most important, communicate with the teachers. If a teacher throws a kid out of class, find out why, assign punishment, tell teacher what punishment is, and again, offer support. Teaching, like I said before, is a very hard job. Very hard job to do in the year 2026. We need to remove distractions, remove things like that from the teacher. That shouldn't be their job to deal with student discipline all day. That's where I would come in, and I could assign any number of consequences from emails home, calls home, student lunch detentions, removing of privileges. Ideally, those before suspension. But if we have to, we would do that. Again, it depends on the infraction that is driven there, and then students would expect the same response to a same action. Number 7, how would you manage a teacher that is not displaying high quality teaching? All right, so the first thing I would do is I would collect evidence. I would do a classroom observation. I could check student learning outcomes. I could check for their engagement levels. The evidence I would collect would stay focused on the teaching practice and do not make this personal at all. I would bring the teacher in. I would directly address the specific area that is not high quality teaching or high quality instruction. And I'd like to be as specific as possible. And I would, again, be crystal clear from the outcome. I would say something along the lines of, In this date, I observed your class not having multiple means of engagement, as an example. This is extra important because we need to address students with special education, high achieving students as well, in order to keep all students engaged. I could offer strategy one, strategy two, strategy three, could refer to one of our instructional guides as well, to one of our in district coaches as well, to provide targeted support specifically to the one thing. The tricky part around this is keeping that teacher relationship alive. I want to, I really do want to help the teachers get better and better. And instead of like this attack, accusatory environment, that's the kind of thing that gets teachers to leave the district and leave the profession as well. I would be very careful about not going about that in an accusatory way, but rather frame it as we want to help you improve, make you the best teacher you can be. Students will love this new strategy for you. They'll be further engaged in your class as well. Number 8, what might you do to improve staff morale? Okay, so staff morale cannot be changed in one day. If staff morale is like really down on a Thursday, you're not gonna fix this on Friday. Improving staff morale is small, daily, consistent exchanges with staff, being seen in the hallways, building those relationships with the staff, frequently walking around, supporting them with discipline. Hear the staff, let them know of the issues that they hear, what you can do to address them, and address them best you can immediately as you can. Not always feasible, but if it's something easy for a staff, absolutely. I want to assure them again that even though I would be doing their formal evaluations, which there's a lot of pressure on, I'm really here as a support figure for them. I'm not here to rule the school with an iron fist. Quite frankly, that's unrealistic and impossible and sounds exhausting, to be honest with you. I need the teachers on my side. So I need to improve the staff morale with myself as the leader, with those daily, consistent changes, hear staff, support them with disciplinary issues, resolve issues that they have, and for those daily, consistent changes that we can use to turn staff around. It's not going to be done overnight. We could buy donuts, put them in the break room. Sure. Who doesn't like a donut? But again, they say, "Ooh, donut, great," and then 5 minutes later, they're back with the same issues they have. That doesn't solve real morale change. Daily interactions do. Number 9, describe an initiative you led. What are some challenges you faced with students, teachers, or parents? So the big initiative that I led in Oxford High School was to implement the seal by literacy in our school, in our district. The main challenge was I had no idea what anything was. I had to figure out the testing requirements. I had to figure out the talking with vendors. I had to figure out budget requests, how to buy these, how to score these, when to do it, the curriculum I needed to implement in my Spanish class to get students to that level, identifying the students, reaching out with families, communicating, all of that. I had to figure out all of that on the fly, and I did. Some of the challenges I faced with students was to build confidence, prepare them. Challenges I faced with families was advertising this, making sure that this is known. We did get this put in our student handbook, letting teachers know that their students would be out of class for the day to take a test. That really wasn't an issue. Most of our teachers were supportive with this initiative. But the main challenge was I had to just figure out everything by myself. And I did. And I figured that out. And new challenges in the future, I'll run with that, the same mentality that I may not get it right the first time. I will get it better and better second and third attempts, obviously, but I can get things done that I have no experience with. So, some skills and experiences that set me apart from other candidates. This is question number 10. La primera cosa es que soy bilingüe en español. I am fluent in Spanish. I understand many different cultures. I don't just say this, I live this too. My wife is from Puerto Rico. My daughter, as well, her first language was Spanish. We taught her to speak Spanish growing up. She now speaks Spanish and English both fluently at 4 years old. I'm not trying to brag about my own family and my own daughter here, as easy as that is. The point is, I'm living this. I'm putting my money where my mouth is about my bilingual ability, my ability to understand many cultures and develop relationships with many families like that. I also believe that I can provide a positive school culture with staff. I've turned the culture around on the Oxford High School baseball team with positivity. Few years ago, before I took over, it tended to be very negative, and I understand the players have since graduated. I have a great group of kids right now I'm thankful for, but we have a very positive team. We do not say anything negative about our teammates. We keep ourselves up. We're developing an identity like that. I can provide that same thing to a school system as well. Overwhelming positivity. Once things go negative, they can go negative real fast, and that's a very slippery slope. Having a positive school culture and building that with my department, I think, is something that I can do very well for your administration. And then the third thing is I don't find problems, I find solutions. If I don't know something, I'll figure it out. I did this with the seal by literacy. Another example, I did this as well. The school, in one of my first years in the district, they were desperate for a middle school basketball coach. I'm not really a big basketball guy. I studied, I worked hard, I figured it out, and I gave the kids what I think was a great season that they still mention to me this day. So I don't find problems, I find solutions. I can build a positive school culture, and then puedo hablar español con cualquier persona, and I think that'll be a helpful gift for us moving forward with hopefully me as an administrator. Number 11. What is one question you wished you were asked during the interview? Ask it and answer. So, how do you build trust and strong relationships with students, staff, and families while maintaining high expectations? I think this is a good question, specifically for me. I know I've answered a lot already in this interview about building trust, open communication, strong relationships, and I do believe all of that, and I will follow through on all that. I think that's the other part of the answer is following through on those things, making teachers feel that this is for real, this is who I am, this is how I operate, this is not going to be just a first 3 weeks in September kind of thing. This is how I'll operate the entire school year. So how do I build those trust and relationships? Accountability, which starts with me. I'll be the first to admit that I make mistakes. Of course, we all make mistakes. Anyone who doesn't admit they make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. No teacher wants to see an administrator who is holier than thou, as they say. I will make mistakes and I will admit to those mistakes. Having your leader admit to a mistake and seeing a leader take accountability, that's like a lead by example thing. Teachers will also hopefully follow that as well. I will be super clear with my communication. I will say I'm doing this because this. And that's it. Usually when I do that in the interactions I've had at Oxford High School, almost everybody accepts it the first time. On the occasion where somebody disagrees with the rationale I have, I actually love it because I would love to hear another point of view and then they can talk back with me and do that. That's part 2 of my answer, using teacher feedback in my decision making and my rationale, I think will help me as well make those decisions. Using teacher rationale, using their input is another way to build trust and build strong relationships. Communication is not just talking. It's not just me posting a message every day. It's not just me sending a million emails or a million Parent Square messages. It's taking what is said to me, really using those in my decision-making process. Being a school administrator is hard. They wouldn't have a whole interview panel of all of you guys if it wasn't super important, and most of all, if it wasn't super hard. I'm going to take this information and use it to make my decisions because, quite frankly, I think I have to. I think that's the only way to consistently get through everything. Okay, interview's over. Ask 3 questions you would like at the end of the interview. Provide a summary statement. First question I would ask is, what does success look like in the first role of this year? So this question is good because it helps me understand what exactly is expected of me in this. What do I have to do to be good, to get an exemplary mark in this district in my first role? Especially in the first role, first impressions, I think are huge. Knowing exactly what I need to do to make a good first impression, I think is a good question for me to see if this school is a good fit. Question number 2, how does your organization support professional growth and development? So it's going to come up at some point. It didn't come up in these 12 questions that was provided for me in this assignment. I have no experience. I haven't been an administrator before. And I know that. And I carefully tried to dodge those answers, dodge saying that in those 12 answers before. But I think this question, A, acknowledges that I do not have experience. I don't want to go advertising that, but I think it's important for me to at least admit that I am definitely willing to grow and I'm definitely willing to learn. And that kind of the mentality that I genuinely do have. I do want to get better and I want to know what the organization can do to help me get better. I don't want to set myself up for failure as well. Even though, yes, this is a job I probably really want in the next couple of years. Yes, I think I'm ready to leave the classroom and step into an administration role. I really want this first trial through with a new job to go well, understanding what they can do to help me be a better administrator moving forward. I think is a very smart career-long move. And question number 3 is, how would you describe the culture of the team or organization? So I answered questions about how the culture would affect me and my ideal world. I get that that's not realistic. Different schools are going to have different cultures. I want to know what their forms of communication are, how they communicate, how they collaborate, how they support one another. And then the question shows that I care about being a positive fit for the organization, and I'm not necessarily just going to jump at the first job that I get. Because of the high pressure that I'm putting on myself in this role, I also really want to make sure that I'm a good fit for this job and not just take any first role job and that I can get and then set myself up for a long school year and a year of disappointment and failure and just find myself back where I am. Thank you very much for this course. Thank you very much for the other course that I'm taking for you. I appreciate everything you've done. I really do feel, especially after this interview assignment, definitely more prepared than I was from say like the beginning of the semester. Thank you very much. I wish you the best.